Hello, welcome back. We are now live. Welcome to the Insane Asylum, and have our guest Dale Kaczmarek with us tonight. And Mark is absent and might pop in at some point. So, how you doing, Dale?
I'm doing good.
So, let's go back to what we were saying. Um, you heard it, we heard it. You finally actually heard it. You got to play it. Um, So what would that be, like some kind of phantom plane that we heard?
Yeah, that's
Because I don't remember ever seeing anything above, and I was kind of watching the skies, just because it's what I do. I kind of like to watch the birds of prey when we're out and
yeah.
about, see what I see.
Hey, Mark.
I don't
Hi,
remember
I
seeing
made it.
or hearing a plane while we were there.
Yeah, I mean, for everybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, I mean, we were basically out at the Buddy Holly Creek
Probably crash site.
in Clearwater, Clear Lake, Iowa, and of course, it's back when the music died in December 3rd, 1959, and Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, Richie Valens, and
Pilot.
the pilot all died shortly after takeoff. And I mean, I discovered some really, really, really crazy stuff when I was doing some research on that, which you can find on my website at ghostresearch.org. But one of the things I discovered was that the gentleman who actually chartered, he was the owner of the plane that Buddy Holly, or at least the pilot, chartered for that trip, was actually on duty at that small airport that it took off from. And so with his plane, and he actually said in an interview that he was in the control tower or whatever, not a big plane, but he was there, and he said he actually saw that plane go down. And he was the first person actually to arrive on scene because he knew exactly the trajectory, the route, the bearing, and he was the first to arrive on the scene. So we were out there in broad daylight. It wasn't close to the crash site, and I mean close to the crash date, I should say. It was very close to exactly where that nose of that plane probably went down, is where that memorial is. And this was a clear, sunny, extremely hot day. Probably not a cloud in the sky, or very little. And I don't remember hearing or seeing anything in the sky that afternoon we were there. But Mark had caught on his audio the sound of a plane coming in, and kind of like you could hear it kind of way far away. It was getting closer and closer, and then it got far away again. And even if it was, say, a real plane, I'm sure one of us would have looked up in the sky and said, "Oh, there's a plane up there," just because we're doing an EVP session, because kind of like tag your EVPs to make sure that if something, kind of contaminates your session, that you know what it is. Yeah. And none of us heard it. Mikey never heard it. None of us heard it. So was it, a phantom plane, or the sound of a phantom plane coming down, or we'll never know. But it was very interesting. It was definitely the sound of a. It sounded to me like a single engine aircraft. That is a smaller airport, so they don't have the big planes coming in there anyway. And so whatever it was, I don't know, but it was pretty amazing, because I must have not had any of my other recorders going at the time. So I mean, we don't have like, my recorder also documenting it as well. I might have been in the middle of an EVP session, or had just finished an EVP session, or maybe was starting an EVP session. So I'm glad Mark at least caught it on one of his, because I never would have caught it, because none of mine were active at the time. And I know that Mikey never sent me anything like that, because something like that, just because nobody said anything, he would have sent it to me. So what is this?
Yeah, there was plenty of us out there that if a plane would have, like you said, if a plane would have went over, somebody would have said something. You would have
Yeah.
thought, you know.
Well, the thing is, I had both of my audio recorders going, but one of them failed. Literally nothing got recorded
And
on
my
it.
camera didn't pick any of it up.
And the recorder I was holding in my hand is the one that recorded that I found that on. And I thought it was really interesting whenever I ran across it. I'm listening to the audio and everything, and you know, it was distinct.
Yeah, it
And
was
then,
unmistakable.
and I know Joe had his camera going,
Yeah.
but I don't remember. You did you go through all your footage, Joe,
No,
and
it's
see if there was
not on
anything on
there.
it?
It's not on there. It's not
It's,
on
it's
there.
really
But,
it's really
I
strange though. I
mean,
mean,
I do have it did pick up when we were doing those EVP sessions. Mikey was playing the various musics, the
hmm
different songs on his cell phone,
and I believe you can hear that
and
on
then
the on my
and then
recording
Dale
too.
Dale had his I forget what that was called, that whole
Asthma
laptop.
box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
going, and you could hear, who sings this, and you could hear that answering, and so on and so forth, but the plane's not there.
Mm.
It's like it's only on that EVP recording.
I don't know, man,
Yeah.
because
I mean,
and
it's
I don't
strange.
recall ever hearing or seeing a plane either when I was out there.
Well, I would have noticed because I was kinda looking towards the
Yeah,
sky a lot because of the birds of prey,
right.
and
But
getting to those
also
areas, I
also
like
the
to
fact
look.
that Lisa says that she didn't hear anything, and
And you
Tanya
didn't
said
see
that
anything?
she didn't hear or see
Nope.
anything. With all of us out there, and none of us, I think that with all of us there, if any of us would have heard what sounded like a plane like that in the sky, we would have actually looked up and said something.
Especially a plane that you would think was about the same size and type that crashed that day.
Well, if
Yeah.
nothing
So
else, if I would have had my video running at the time, I guarantee you, I would have, went up in the sky and I would have filmed it or something and said, well, here's, maybe this is kind of the same route or the same, approximately the same heading that, that aircraft was taking off from. I mean, because,
Right.
I mean,
mhm.
it sounded like it was far away. So maybe it had just taken off and it was getting closer. Then it kind of like, banked off in one direction or another. And I don't know which direction it went, but it got, less and less. And then all of a sudden it wasn't there anymore. And
Right.
it's interesting that it was caught on a digital recorder because, obviously, most EVPs are caught that way anyway, on digital recorders. Sometimes you
Yep.
don't necessarily hear something with your own physical ears, but the digital recorder, because it does, collect and assemble, sound bites that sometimes aren't necessarily in our range of hearing. And
Right.
it's
Yeah.
only during playback anyway that you would hear those voices or sounds or whatever the case may be. So why we never heard it. Maybe it wasn't there at all. Maybe it was just captured on the EVP. Maybe it was a true ghost plane.
Could have been, maybe. But I do know that when we did our Halloween investigation up in Grafton, and I can kind of compare this way because on my audio device I caught an audio, and on both my camera and Joe's camera, which were in the same room running at the same time because we were doing an EVP session in there, it also caught the same audio. So I know that the cameras can actually catch those audios as well.
Oh yeah,
But if Joe's camera didn't catch that, and my voice recorder did, then that's that even makes it more mysterious.
yeah. See, I use a 4K camera right now, which basically stores it on SD cards, which is an electronic media. But I still have three other old style Sony Night Shot camcorders, which record on high 8 cassettes. And high 8 cassettes, basically are the same type of media that that the early EVPers would use on these bulky reel-to-reel tape decks. It's magnetic recording tape, and that's the idea that something
Well,
impresses itself directly onto the tape, bypasses the physical ear, and then sometimes even the physical microphone. So a lot of times I will get stuff. Yeah, there you go.
what's that?
Like this stuff.
High 8. So that
I have
time.
Type C.
So even with that, sometimes you can capture things on those high 8s, an EVP as well. Yeah. And I've caught a lot of EVPs on the audio track of videotapes in the past using those older.
I got an old VHS Type C one where it's like
No, this isn't.
you
This
got to have
isn't.
like an actual VHS deal and it as an adapter to actually play it.
Yeah.
I've still got the camera for that, and then I've got the old compact disc player where you've got to have the little tiny disc for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Those
used to have a
are
camera that I used to have a camera a long time ago that these went to, and then I had I never got a player because you could plug the camera in and use it like a player.
Yeah.
right.
But I don't know if my ex-wife still has the camera.
Yeah, I have 3 of those that I picked up throughout the years. 2 of them initially at like Best Buy, and then I actually picked up at a garage sale for like $30. And
That's what I'm thinking of finding one if I can, and then I can start see if it would work too.
yeah,
What you pick up.
but you can find
Right
that
now-
on eBay.
Right now, I mean, the best camera we've got is that newer one that I got is the 4K full spectrum
Yeah.
night vision camera or ultra spectrum or something.
Yeah, it seems like every investigation I do with you guys, I pick up something weird. If it's not there at Buddy Holly Crash Site,
it's just me.
That school was freaky. That school just that school was just loaded
Hey,
with activity.
that school, I mean, here we are. I wound up having 5 pieces of equipment subsequently fail on me.
I love that
And
part.
I think it had the fact that I was in there by myself in the boiler room provoking.
Yeah.
I think you're just a magnet for it all. I mean, but then again, it wasn't you
I kind
out
of
at
am a magnet.
Ascalon State Park. It was my equipment that failed there.
I know.
I know one of our team members, Mike Wright, who was there with us. He was a taller gentleman, and he was doing an EVP session in there. In fact, I think he was later on, maybe not when I was in there, maybe before or after he had done an Estes method, which I'm kind of on the fence with that. But anyway, he was doing one, and he got some he says he got some very bad stuff come through, because you're basically using like an SB11 or SB7 or something like that. And he got some pretty nasty stuff to the point that he told me he wasn't going to be doing any more Estes methods. And that was in the boiler room. So that's
that place was active.
It was active, and it was a little dark.
There was something in that boiler room. I know there was. I felt the energy in there.
Yeah.
I can actually feel the energies when they're around me like that. I can feel negative and positive energies.
The other place that you and your group went to that same weekend was that axe murderer house.
Right.
And there's a group that I know that's going there as of this weekend, I believe. They're going to be there. That's one place we got to get to yet.
Yeah, it's a very small building. It's kind of paper thin walls. So, I mean, if you're doing like a session, it's usually a good idea to kind of keep the group together, because otherwise you cross-contaminate each other's EVP sessions. But, there's a basement that we could have went in, but it was really kind of muddy and slushy. And I said, no, I'll skip on that. And of course, the attic and the upstairs, I had a very weird thing happen to me. Now, I can't be 100% sure it was paranormal, but I will say that I was, walking around the upstairs, and it's such a small house that, when I normally don't wander off from the group, but I mean, like 15 feet away up the stairs, pretty much. It's such a small house, and I was kind of walking up there in the bedrooms where the family and the children were killed up there, and all of a sudden I heard a noise behind me, like a little plastic sounding noise, and I go, "What the heck was that?" And I turned over there, and a little tiny plastic Statue of Liberty toy had flopped over. Now, I mean, I guess it was such a flimsy little thing that it possibly could have been set off by just me walking around and the vibrations that kind of knocked that over. But I thought that was kind of weird that it happened when it happened, and then on top of that, I'm sitting very quietly in one of the chairs, and I had the camera facing towards a crib. There was a crib up there, and we had when we did the initial walkthrough, we had gotten some unusual EMF readings there. So I kind of was watching that crib area, and it's maybe no more than 3 feet away from the door that goes into the next bedroom and goes past that attic door where supposedly the killer was hanging out until everybody went to sleep. And all of a sudden, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. Down that hallway, a dark figure darted into the other room, and I go, "Whoa, what was that?" Of course, the camera didn't catch it. It was just a couple of feet away, so it didn't catch that. But I caught it out of the corner of my eye, and it wasn't that dark that I couldn't see that hallway, even though we didn't have any lights on up there at the time. But so I had a couple of things happen to me when I was up there, and my team that stayed overnight, I decided to go to a much, instead of sleeping on the floor or getting a sleeping bag, which is kind of uncomfortable for me because I have to have a CPAP anyway. We stayed in a motel, but then they were there overnight, and they said they heard a big crash in the middle of the night. They don't know still don't know where it came from. So it was kind of interesting. We did have some stuff come through the Phasma box in the living room, the kind of small living room. There's a bedroom downstairs. The bedroom downstairs is supposedly where they found the axe, the actual axe from the murder, leaning against one of the walls or a door jamb or something like that in that room. We had a very, very interesting guide who had been there for like the past 18 years. He's been running tours, so he's collected a lot of information, kind of debunked a lot of the old theories and who it might have been, and of course there was no fingerprints, there was nothing like that, so you couldn't get any fingerprints off the axe to capture anybody. And that was a kind of a town that was such a small little town that everybody trusted everybody knew each other, so nobody really locked their doors at night. And they probably went to church that day, and he got in and crept up there. That's what they say. We're not 100% sure, but probably was up in that little attic. And then when they all went to bed that night, it was a family and then two neighbor kids. So there were 4 children and 2 adults that were actually killed. And it's never going to be solved. I'm sure that guy is long gone, but it's a creepy little place, and if you get a chance to go there, I would highly suggest going there. I mean, it's got some interesting stories, interesting, especially if you go in a smaller group. If you keep it to like maybe 6 people or less, I mean, that would be ideal. You may capture some things. You might actually hear things. I mean, there's a neighborhood cat, believe it or not, the little gray cat that apparently somehow gets into the building and wanders around. And the first time that happened, it kind of freaked out, my team. They thought, oh, it's a phantom cat, or what is it? I mean, because cats, they can walk, they don't even make any noise at all, and all of a sudden you see something there. And he's kind of tame and everything, but just don't try to grab him and try to bite the crap out of me. But kind of probably like a feral cat or something. So he's kind of on his own and wandering around. But
Have to bring Joy with us or Jasmine. Good snack
yeah,
for the puppies.
No, I'm sure.
I'm not a cat person.
Neither am I.
hey Len, how you doing? Len Dorman is on.
Yeah, I'm not a cat
Yeah,
person.
me
Joe's
neither.
saying he's not a cat person, but yet he had cats.
Yeah, well, I did have cats, and I also have that so-called, I don't know what you call it, some kind of gift, you know. My cousin had a couple of
And
cats
if it wasn't for
that,
his cats, he may have been caught in a house fire.
Oh wow.
yeah, that's a different story. But anyway, I was my 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 cousin had like a couple of cats that only like one of the kids and his wife could actually pick up and hold these two cats, right? I was over at his house one day just standing there talking to him in the kitchen, and the one cat just comes over and jumps up in my arm and starts purring, you know. It's like, "Pet me, pay attention." I it's like there's never been a dog there's like a dog I haven't met that I don't like that, people may be afraid of it. It's viciously barking, but I'll go up to it and it'll let me pet it. It's like a natural gift with animals like that.
Yeah.
But what he was talking about, I lived in this old they were old army. They used to be army, but they were been around for a long time. Cause Sun Prairie, it's a small town in just outside of Madison.
Yep.
It used to be an army base back in the day. So a lot of these buildings were built quick and poorly. And I lived in one of those, and I got up at about 3 o'clock in the morning to get something to drink. And as I walked into the kitchen, I heard both of the cats just sitting there hissing up a storm, meowing and hissing. And I walked out to the living room, turned on the lights. They're sitting on the back of the like a recliner type chair, staring at the wall that was behind it where the thermostat was. And yep, there was a fire right behind the thermostat in the wall, an electrical fire. So if they didn't, yeah, that would have actually started. If I didn't wake up and didn't hear them, yeah, it would have burnt that whole building down.
Wow.
So I had to cut the power to and it was the middle of winter, so I had to cut the power to the heat and, you know, make an emergency call to have them come and repair it.
Yeah.
But you could see that it was already starting to burn the wall because there was a big black spot right above the thermostat on the wall where it was starting to burn through because the heat. You get both, it
Well, I
wasn't
have a lot of interesting places I'm going to be trying to travel this year. It might cost me a little bit extra this year because of all the gas prices, but it's not going to deter me from
Yeah.
doing investigations. I mean, I'm still going to do them, but I got a couple that are really coming up that I'm really kind of fascinated to go to. Among some of the other things I do besides ghost research and of course Civil War battlefields. I like going to places where there are ghost lights or spook lights throughout the world, and I've been to quite a number. I wrote a book called Illuminating the Darkness, the Mystery of Spook Lights, which kind of catalogs some of my travels to a lot of places, and of course many of them I never had a chance to visit yet. They're still on my wish list. But this year I'm going to knock off at least one of those off my list because we're going to be heading down to Alabama this year, kind of doing another / Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama trip this year. So basically, one of the places that I never had a chance to actually visit, we were there last year, but it was closed because of the pandemic, was the Bell Witch Cave. So I hope to get into a Bell Witch Cave, and I don't know if they allow investigations, but at least be able to be there. Maybe I can put a digital recorder in my pocket, and the guy won't notice, and I can do an EVP session. Something like that. But I mean, um, definitely want to do that, and then there, as I kind of travel, from Tennessee down, maybe past Chickamauga battlefield, because I was there in 1980. 85, 86. Didn't have any video equipment, hardly any equipment at all, period. And then uh, go and visit the Leonard Skinner crash site,
Oh, that would be cool.
which is in it's near Dillsburg, Mississippi, and they actually have a memorial to that crash site. It was Ronnie Van Zant and one of the players, I think, and the bass player's wife, and then I think a roadie was also in there, and there was like, I don't know, 12 people or something in there. Not all of them died, because Ronnie Van Zant basically he wasn't even in his chair. I mean, he was kind of walking up, and he was in the cockpit when the thing started sputtering. And there was a big documentary about that here recently on a History Channel, but he went over the whole thing. And there was a couple of gentlemen out there, and I really wish I could find, they didn't mention it, and I looked in the credits, and they didn't put nothing on their names on the bottom. But these guys were out there. They know exactly where the nose of the plane went down. There used to be an old marker out there made of like scrap metal. And I don't know if that's still there or not, but that's where the nose went down. And they were just they said, if you kind of look around here, you still might find bits and pieces of the airplane, because it's aluminum and it doesn't rust, it doesn't corrode. And no sooner had they said that, they pulled out a piece that was about this big. It must have been like maybe almost a foot long, and maybe almost a foot wide. And it actually had rivets in there, so you could actually tell it came from the plane. And so they carted that off for a souvenir. But I've been visiting a lot of different, obviously places where planes went down. Flight 191, 4184 in Roselawn, Indiana last year, and then of course the Buddy Holly crash site, the Jim Reeves crash site, Patsy Cline's crash site, and hopefully next year this year we'll do the Leonard Skinner. And then we want to go into like a little bit of Alabama. There's some places in Florence and Decatur, some old mansions that are very haunted. I hope to get in there and at least to take a tour through there, maybe do a little mini investigation. And then at the very end, one of the books that's in my publishing company that I published for a man named White Cox, called The Amazing Cloverdale, Alabama Spooklight Mystery, which is actually in Cloverdale, Alabama. And he was out there for many years documenting, videotaping, taking still pictures of these weird lights in the sky and in and around, even on ground level. So he actually lives in Bentonville, South Carolina. He's going to meet us out there for a day or two of exploring out there. And he's even got a cabin very close to where these lights are located, that we actually could be out there and just kind of pop in and out of the cabin. So, and then we might end up going to Shiloh. That might be our last stop, Shiloh battlefield, before we head back. So it'll be kind of like a big loop. Another interesting place that I've been to a number of times this year, throughout the years, I should say, is the Joplin, Missouri spook light, called the Tri-State Spook Light, one of the more famous ones near Joplin, Missouri. So we're hoping to go there somewhere between the weekend, somewhere between May 14th and May 29th. I have one of my members, Paul Adams, who is coming all the way from the UK to spend 2 weeks with me. So I said, I got a spare bedroom. You're welcome to stay here, and we're going to show them all around the area, do a lot of investigating in those 2 weeks. So I'll be doing something literally every day. So, and we hope to go out there for a day or two and scope out that spook light out there. So if you guys are free, when we decide to do it, you're more than welcome to tag along with us. I mean, it's a bit of a trip. I mean, for me, it's about, I'm going to say maybe about 8-10 hours, something like that, to get down. Maybe more for you guys because you were up in the north. But yeah, a couple of times when I was there, I made the mistake of traveling down there on a weekend. which is really not good because all the locals know about it. And so teenagers go out there and they're drinking beer. They're out there with their girlfriends. They're trying to scare their girlfriends, and you really can't do a very serious
Oh, it's like
investigation.
a makeout spot.
What's that?
It's like a teenage makeout spot on the weekends, huh?
Exactly. And I did I did a really bad naughty thing too when I was there. I contacted the media, and KSN from Joplin, Missouri, put us on the evening news. And we were out there for 3 days, and the next 2 days it was just a flood of people out there. But the Ghost Research Society is going to be out there, and so if we do any media stuff, we're going to do it the very last day that we're there. Because a lot of times I contact the media. I did contact Martha Churchwell from the Joplin Globe, and she gave me a lot of interesting pictures that she took out there of this light apparently hovering and then shooting off into the woods, and an old black and white, which I have still in my collection that she told me I was able to use for the book and also for the website. And then we're going to be doing a lot of stuff around here because he happens to be coming in during the weekend of Flight 191, which is May 25th. We hope to do something out there. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they are unfortunately trying to put an off-ramp right through that crash site to the interstate there, which to me is it's sacrilegious. It's one of the largest unmarked graveyards because no full bodies were ever recovered from that thing, just bits and pieces and some personal artifacts. And we've been trying to get on that site for years because it's an old canine training facility, and they just kept saying, "Oh, well, it's too personal. It's too personal. Family members need to go there, but yet you guys are going to tear it all up and put an off ramp on there, right over the site." And that's supposed to happen sometime real soon. I mean, it may even happen before May 25th, may be completed. So I don't know how that may even stir up more activity for all you know, because they're going to have to dig and level and sift around and so
Yeah,
forth.
and who knows what they might disturb.
Yeah, they're going to stir up something there. And maybe that strip of road will be haunted and nobody will actually drive.
No, that's what I was gonna say. If they're gonna do something like that and they put an off ramp there and everything and disturb all that, what's to say that there might not be incidents happening there quite often and even more often, and maybe even have more apparitions appear.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you disturb areas like that.
I mean, it's still the United States' worst air disaster in American soil. 281 people died in that plane crash, and there was 2 people that were killed on the ground. So I think it was a total of 280. It might have been 281 with that, 279 actually with people on the plane, and 2 more on the ground for a total of 281, including crashing into an old Ravenswood Airport hangar that was on the property.
Wow.
Just missing a trailer court. I got some amazing photographs that I was able to get there. I was there about 2 months after the crash back in 1979, and it wasn't cordoned off. It didn't say no trespassing. So of course, if it doesn't say it, I'm going to go on the property. And I was snapping some pictures. Didn't get anything, but I was able to get some really good perspectives of exactly where this plane went down by the telephone poles that was there in 1979 and are still there to this very day. So you can actually point the spot where that took place. And there are a lot of interesting news articles and news videos from the time that actually show that. I've been in contact with family that lost people on there. They have a commemorative wall not too far away in a park that has a brick for every single passenger on there, including the flight crew. And so I went there one day and I just took my my cell phone. I just kind of did a panorama, a slow kind of scroll all the way across, sort of like for a memorial. And I posted it on my website and got onto my YouTube channel. And I got so many positive comments from that. Oh, my uncle was on that plane. My aunt was on that plane. My mother was on that plane. And I reached out to a lot of these people because, I figured, maybe if I could get somebody to come along with me who was a family member, which they can't not allow the family to go on there because it's like
Yeah.
visiting a cemetery,
Right.
maybe then we could get on there. And I was just recently, a couple of years ago, on a show called World's Most Unexplained, which they had a whole segment on Flight 191, and there were the Borges family. The son and two daughters who at the time were still alive. I think they all three are still alive. And I did contact them about that through email. He wouldn't give me the phone number, but he gave me an email. And I just explained what I wanted to do, and they just said, no, we're not really interested, but thank you. So I didn't push any further than that. But every May 25th, I try to get on the property one way or the other. So hopefully we'll be out there on May 25th to somewhere on the property. Obviously not private property, but there is a right next to where the crash site took place. There's a trucking storage facility for like trucks and so forth, and RVs and everything, which was not there when the crash site took place. So actually part of the plane actually went down in that area, which is now being used as a trucking firm. And normally they're not too worried about us just parking one or two cars in their parking lot and kind of walking up to the fence line, which you're probably about 100 feet away from where that plane went down, and doing our EVP sessions. We've got all kinds of crazy stuff like the captain's name coming through, Captain Lutz.
Oh,
We've had flight numbers come through. We actually had American came through, and we asked what kind of airlines it was. So we got a lot of interesting stuff almost every time we've been there on ghost boxes or phasma boxes.
well, you said that trucking, that storage area was on part of the land that the plane actually did crash on, right?
Right.
Has there been any reportings from anybody there? Or did you ask any of the people there if there's been any sightings that they've seen or anything
No,
on that part of the land?
No, I actually haven't. And, normally when we try to do these, we try to do this on a weekend when we don't disturb anybody. The place closed on a Saturday or a Sunday, but a lot of times it falls during the middle of the week. Now, the couple times we were there before in the middle of the week, I actually had one of the people that was with us actually go in there and ask permission for us to be there. And the guys go, yeah, fine. And we told them basically what we were going to be doing, and obviously they got to know that's where the plane went down. I mean, it's common knowledge. And he never said anything. He never said that he experienced anything. So sometimes you get people that are disbelievers, and even if they had an experience, they're going to say they didn't have an experience or it was something else. But we're going to be doing a lot of different things this year. Places I've never been to before. A couple of places in Joliet and Lockport. Which is not too far from where I live, and doing a lot of local stuff through the area. We're going to be doing, like I said, one trip with my friend out to Joplin because he wants to see the spook light, and then the Alabama trip. And depending if people want to do more, I mean, I could plan another trip. I've always wanted to go like to South Carolina and Georgia. There's some places there I want to see, including a spook light in Screven, Georgia, another spook light. Andersonville prison, which was a Civil War prison for Union soldiers. Atlanta, Savannah, and even Fort Sumter, which was the beginning of the Civil War, which I never saw that. I've seen where the Civil War ended at Appomattox Courthouse, but never saw where it actually started. So I need to get that part of the battlefield visits complete as well. But yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of things this year, and I always wanted to say that I need to go down to 1 year to where Len is located so we can investigate together, because there's several places that when I made my trip to Arkansas years ago, I was down there with the Arkansas Gazette, another newspaper, and we went out to see the Gurdon Spook Light in Gurdon, Arkansas. which was and I actually captured it, believe it or not. I actually captured it on a time lapse camera that was pitch dark. I was using high speed film, and I just opened up the shutter for a few seconds and I closed it. It was on tripod, so I never moved it. It never jiggled. And I didn't see anything, but when I got the film back, there was at least three frames where I saw strange lights down the train tracks. And that's some place I'd like to go back with some of our our heavy duty equipment, which again I didn't have back then. And I've never been to the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, which is one place I definitely want to go. A couple of other places we went to Hot Springs. There were some places in Hot Springs, including a place called, maybe Len can help me out with this. It's a place, it's a field where you can actually dig for your own diamonds.
I've heard about that, and I actually want to go down there and do that.
And you can, anything you find, you keep. You pay like a minimal fee, and you go there. And
I think the last time I heard it was like $5. You pay $5, and you take a 5-gallon bucket in there, and you can dig all day long.
Yeah.
And anything you find, you get to keep. Now I'm sure they upped the price a little bit.
Sure.
But,
yeah. And go ahead.
Well, it's supposedly it's located inside of a like the park is supposedly located inside of an old volcano.
Yeah. Yeah, there's supposed to be something that happened there throughout the years, and every so often they go there with backhoes and they kind of turn the earth over, so people don't have to dig, with their bare hands 3 or 4 feet down, and it kind of like brings to the surface perhaps things that are like 2 or 3 feet below the surface, and people go out there and some people have little stakeouts. They go there every day. They stake out their little claim. They got a little flag, and you can't dig in that area, but anywhere else you can go. I mean, it's a huge field.
If I remember correctly, it had that's where one of the largest yellow diamonds came out of there.
They actually have a display case in there that shows some of the stuff that
people, there it is, Crater of Diamond State Park.
Right. They actually have people there on staff that can actually kind of tell you, oh, well, that's actually quartz, or that's a diamond, or that's a gem, or that's something else, So I mean, I picked up a couple of stones. I don't know, they look like they were pretty stones, so I picked them up and took them. They're probably nothing at all. But and I wasn't going to spend the whole day. It was hot. There was no shade. It was an open field. The sun was beating down on me, so I was only there for a little bit. But yeah. So I've been reading the post here by Len. Definitely talking about the Confederate Naval Museum and Hot Springs and Crescent Hotel and. There's actually another place that I saw. It's called it's a road, Townsend Road. I might be mistaken with that, but there's supposed to be a hitchhiking ghost that's been seen on that road. And it's a very similar story to Resurrection Mary sightings. And if you ever heard that song Lori, it talks about the guy that met this girl. He danced with a girl. She was cold. He gave her sweater, and then as they left, he brought her home. Forgot that he left his sweater on the girl. Went back. The father says, "My daughter has been died years ago." He went to the graveside. He sees the sweater folded nicely upon her grave. It's written by a man and performed by a man named Dickie Lee. It's called Lori. And it's a ghost story, basically. And this is very similar. That again, this was supposedly a girl that was killed by a hit and run accident near a bridge. And people will see her, this apparition hanging out by the bridge. And she's a beautiful girl. She's probably a teenager, but she's pretty. And sometimes they'll pick her up and she'll say, I live just down the road. she doesn't talk very much, and then they get to the front of the house, and then they look in the back of the seat, and she's not there.
And she's gone. Yeah, I've heard that of that story too.
So
Sounds something similar to what we got up here in Wisconsin over by Sauk City, um, or Baraboo. It's between Sauk City and Baraboo, or Prairie du Sac and or something like that. But it's as you're going into Baraboo, it's Highway 12, and it's along the old part of Highway 12. It's not the new bypass section that they made.
The Highway 12 hitchhiker story.
Yeah, the Highway 12 hitchhiker story. Supposedly, he's dressed in like army fatigues
Soldier, yeah. Soldier.
and like a soldier,
oh wow.
and you see him hitchhiking, like going towards Baraboo, hitchhiking, and you'd stop to pick him up, and then he'd be gone or something like that.
Appears, and then all of a sudden he picks up, drives down about 2 or 3 more miles, and there he is again hitchhiking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He like reappears.
That sort of reminds me of a Twilight Zone episode I saw once called The Hitcher. And it was very similar. This woman would stop, and she'd see this guy on the side of the road, and he wanted a lift, and she said no, and she drove away. And a few hundred feet down the road, there he was again, and he was actually stopping again and again and again and again further down the road. And supposedly the story was, I mean, it was a made-up story, obviously, for Twilight Zone, but the idea was that this guy had been involved in a traffic accident, and he was trying to get home, and he wanted a lift to get home because he never made it home that night or that day when the accident took place. So, and that's the same story with Resurrection Mary and other places. Some of these are folklore more than they are true. But a lot of these stories, including the Resurrection Mary story that I highly researched for going back to for me, starting back in the mid 1970s, but the story goes all the way back to like the 1930s, actually, of people that encountered her. So it's a lot more than just simply a ghost story or an urban legend. It's more that you have some sort of truth behind it. There is some evidence that there could have been somebody who was actually struck and killed by a car and on her way home. So if you never made it home, then in the afterlife, you're still trying to make it home. You're still trying to hitchhike. You're still trying to get in cars or cabs or trucks or whatever. And there's been several different events that took place with Resurrection Mary, where she got into trucks and cab drivers and personal vehicles of people. So it's a bit more than just simply urban legend in some cases, but in other cases it's kind of almost like a copycat type of story, where you go to almost any small town or any every state's got a hitchhiking ghost, and sometimes more than one. I mean, here in Illinois, we got at least 4 or 5 different hitchhiking ghosts that I know of, just in the Chicagoland area. You've got the hitchhiking flapper ghost, you got the Resurrection Mary, of course, and then you got a hitchhiking Jesus-looking figure that's actually been seen near Palatine and Ela Road. That, according to the story with this, he's got a full beard. He looks like Jesus. He gets in the back seat of the car, tells him where he wants to go. Then he gives it some sort of religious message like, sin or repent, or the world's coming to an end. And the guy turns around and the guy's not there anymore. Now, the weirdest one I actually found out was near 294 and the off ramp, or it would be the off ramp going down towards. There's a large cemetery there. I'm trying to think of the name of the road now. It might be. It'll come to me. But the story is that there's a gentleman that's actually seen with, if you remember Art Garfunkel, his hair was kind of like sticking straight up when he was in his 60s. They call it Art Garfunkelish type hair. And he's got what what they call a bunny jacket on, and very kind of a white pale face, and he's been seen hitchhiking or trying to get a lift on the off ramp onto where this large cemetery is. And when people stop or they'll look in the rearview mirror, it's just not there anymore. So I mean, there's at least a half a dozen or more of really kind of bizarre kind of hitchhiking ghost stories throughout the Chicagoland area, and it's hard to unfortunately figure out if these stories are true or if they're more urban legend, or if there was somebody that died at the location from an accident or something. Sometimes there is some sort of history behind some of these stories, though.
Yeah. Oh, what, Joe? Or I don't know if Joe's even paying attention.
I'm reading
I
Len
am
Gordon's
just
thing
making
here.
noise. Tanya just got home and
Uh,
Yeah, I seen you're eating something too.
trying to because I haven't eaten all day. Um, Now you made me drink.
yeah, all those locations look like they're
I love it.
to do, Len. I need to get
Well,
down there.
there's a lot of stories like that throughout the nation,
Oh,
uh,
I
Oh,
all
was
over the
I was
place.
gonna say now, you know, it's just like how Hollywood takes one person, can take one person, for example, the guy from Plainsfield here, and make so many different movies off of it, and so many different characters. I mean, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Anthony Perkins, guy from Psycho.
yeah.
You know, they're all based pretty much loosely upon Ed Gein or Gein or however you want to pronounce his name. You know,
Yeah.
and some of those stories, I believe there's got to be maybe a little hint of truth in some of them. You
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
and then over the years, they grow into legends, folklore, and kind of get, you know, exaggerated or just blown out of proportion a little bit more over each generation or something.
Yeah, that's my theory on a lot of these folk legends. I mean, in many cases, there's a hint of truth behind some of these. In many cases, there may have been something very nondescript that took place at a site, but because, as you say, the story is told from generation to generation to generation, each generation might add something to make it sound a little bit more interesting. And then when you finally get down to our generation, it's so blown out of proportion or so
It's all
exaggerated,
believable.
sensationalized, that it doesn't even resemble the original story at all.
Right.
But I think urban legends, generally speaking, I mean, like anything, somebody starts this legend or somebody tells the story, or this narrative, and it's it survives the test of time. It's told from one generation. Your grandpa might tell you, and then your father will tell you, and then you tell it to your kids, and their kids will say, and it goes on and on and on. And like I say, there may be something, in fact, that happened in many of these cases. Some Resurrection Mary, for instance, and we have several different possible Resurrection Mary candidates. We don't know who she is. We may never know who she is. And so
Right.
the other ghost stories of hitchhiking ghosts around the country, the same thing. I mean, there may have been some story behind it initially, even when I was writing my book on haunted highways and bridges, for instance. And what creates a haunted highway? Well, it could be a traffic accident. It could be an old bridge dating back to the Civil War that maybe they hung slaves over the bridge. Maybe there was a shooting. Maybe there was somebody who died in the construction of that bridge or that roadway. And then people begin to see those people later on because they linger at the site where they lost their lives. And in a lot of cases that I came across in writing that book, there were actual narratives that you could actually trace down to newspaper articles that said so and so died here. the Golden Gate Bridge is a perfect example. It's the bridge. It's the bridge that has the most suicides of any bridge anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
More
didn't
people jump to their death
they
on the
suicide bridge?
Golden Gate Bridge than anywhere else in the world. And if the fall don't kill you, because of a very steep fall from that bridge, it's the 53-degree water temperature and the current that's drag you right out to sea. And not only actually California has a #1 bridge, but it also has a #2 bridge, which is the Coronado Street Bridge, which is the second most most visited suicidal bridge anywhere in the state of California, and probably in the world that I've been able to come up with. Now, mostly my book is written about places here in the United States. I'm sure I could find other locations if I wanted to expand the book or make a volume 2 of places outside the country that also had suicide bridges. There was one, for instance, right in and Len can attest to that. We investigators together in the old city cemetery in Lincoln Park. It was called High Bridge, H-I-G-H, High Bridge.
Yeah.
And it later was known as Suicide Bridge because of all the people that jumped to their death. And when we were out there doing an EVP session, part of that investigation that Len set up, which we're going to be investigating it again this year when my friend comes from the UK. We're going to take him out there and try to do some nighttime stuff out there. We were doing a ghost box session, and in 2 different segments, 2 different EVP clips, you hear somebody in the background yell, "Jump!" And it's crazy, and it's clear as day. And so, is it the people that were edging on that guy to jump, or was it the guy saying, "I'm going to jump"? We don't know, but it happened twice, and we were fairly close to where that suicide bridge once stood. And I know the exact site now. Today, I did a lot of research since that time, and so hopefully, when we go there, this year, I'm still trying to put together the actual. There's a lot of red tape for some of these permits, unfortunately, to get involved. And I think if the park is actually open till like 11 o'clock, then we may not even have to get a permit at all, as long as we're out of there before 11 o'clock when the park closes. So we might just do that. We might just try to get there maybe around 8 o'clock and do like a 3-hour investigation. That would be fine. And not only do you have that suicide bridge there, you have there's a bunch of city cemeteries that used to exist. They were started back in the 1850s, I believe. And there used to be a Catholic cemetery, a Jewish cemetery, a pauper cemetery, the general city cemetery, and 2 other smaller ones. I think it was 5 or 6 smaller cemeteries all together to create this huge cemetery. And right where we had kind of set up our headquarters that evening with Len, which was the old field, the field house, field building, right within a stone's throw of that are a bunch of baseball diamonds. And those baseball diamonds is where a lot of the indigent people were buried in basically unmarked graves. And you could literally walk, people play on it because they're baseball diamonds, and they don't know below them that there are probably a few hundred or maybe even a few thousand bodies still in the ground, because when they were stopping that from being a cemetery, they tried to contact people, friends and loved ones, to move them. And of course, whole families had died out since then. There were no markers. They couldn't find anybody. Their records were very poor. So basically, they left them in the ground. Exactly, like the movie Poltergeist. They left them in the ground.
Opposite. I saw a grandchild.
But and of course, you got the only surviving marker from that cemetery, which is right on the property of the history museum. It's called the Couch Memorial. It's actually a crypt, above ground that's still there to this day. And we were actually able to visit that. It's got this is a really creepy thing because they don't even know if Ira Couch is actually still buried there anymore, because he was a very wealthy financier. He owned a lot of hotels in the city of Chicago, and what people would try to do sometimes is they would try to poke their snake cameras underneath the door to see if they could see if there were, say the coffin's still there. But what they discovered, as soon as you poke it through, there's another door right there. So you couldn't get the chamber. So it's still a mystery, is Ira Couch still buried there or not? But a lot of interesting things we hope to do there. And the only thing we have to pay for is parking, because it's part of the Lincoln Park Zoo, which, by the way, is another thing all to itself, because when they were digging up the foundation for then what they call the farm in the zoo, which is a little farm for kitties to go through and pet the little yeah. Dr. Lester Fisher, now you guys might not remember this because you're probably not from Chicago so much, but Dr. Lester Fisher used to appear, he was the curator, he used to appear on the Ray Rayner show.
Oh, I remember that show, Ray Rayner show.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Him wearing that funny umbrella, telling the
jumpsuit with all the notes and everything on it. But he used to have a segment called the Ark in the Park.
Right.
Dr. Lester Fisher would come over and he'd visit the zoo, he'd bring an animal in and so forth. But Dr. Lester Fisher, basically, when they were digging up the foundation to lay the concrete slab to put this farm on top of there, they came across bodies in the ground. And this had been a common occurrence throughout the years when they were digging walkways or sewers or water fountains. They were coming across bodies. They said it's just part of the old cemetery, so they'd have to handle them as respectively as they could. Well, he called police several times about this, and he never got a call back. He goes, well, why didn't they call me back? I mean, so he said, well, just leave them where they're at in the ground, pour the cement over them, don't disturb their graves. So to this day, if you walk in the farm building, you're walking on top of unmarked graves that are still in that.
Wow.
That sounds like something Bob would do. Just put them back in the ground, pour some cement over it, and just start building.
Exactly. So I'm hoping, and I'm still not giving up the possibility that we may be able to do an investigation, because I was supposed to do a bunch of tours with the Lincoln Park Zoo people. The Lion House, there's a washroom downstairs. In fact, both the women and the men's washroom. As soon as you walk into it, they have sinks on both sides and mirrors on both sides. So you're walking between sets of mirrors to your left and the right. And you know what happens, what they say, when you have mirrors facing one another, it can create a vortex.
Yeah.
That's what people do. And they've had all kinds of experiences, mostly in the woman's washroom. And why it's always the woman's washroom, I don't know. But there's a lot of things happening there. Of course, that farm in the zoo and a few other locations in the Lincoln Park Zoo that we were supposed to get permission to investigate. But unfortunately, things didn't work out in our favor. But I haven't given up the possibility we may be able to get in there sometime in the future. So I'm going to see if I can contact them and see if they'd be interested in allowing us to come in on an evening and do an investigation in some of those buildings. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah. They supposedly brought me food.
Places in the city of Chicago that I want to get into, the Museum of Science and Industry. You guys have probably heard of that, right? Well,
I'd like to visit that place.
On the south shore, south end, they have the Jackson Park Lagoon. That's where the ashes of Clarence Darrow, the famous lawyer, was scattered. And people have actually thought they have seen him dressed in a camel hair jacket on the south side of the building, walking in out-of-date clothing from the 1930s and 40s. The U-505 submarine, before it was captured, the commander, the German commander, committed suicide in the conning tower. That's a fact.
Yeah.
People that I have sworn affidavits from people and docents who take tours through there that said they heard sounds and footsteps and saw shadows. And you ever remember going in the coal mine exhibit when you were there? It's supposedly
I've never been to these places.
okay.
I remember seeing a lot of these places on the Ray Rayner show because, there was 2 things every morning when I was going to school in the '70s that we would watch before school because they were always on before school. It was a Ray Rayner show first thing, and then it was Bozo the Clown right after.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I used to watch that, and he'd have these trips to, like, the Museum of Science and Industry. He'd have trips to places like, Shed's Aquarium, all those different places that he'd go to.
Yeah,
I still have yet to go to,
yeah.
but I've
Well,
wanted to since then.
this exhibit is actually, it looks like it's a working coal mine. It's actually just in the basement of the building, and you actually go there and they put you in there like it looks like an old train that you might go on some old tracks like through a coal mine.
Right.
Then you end up, and they talk about some of the implements that they would use, like picks and shovels and headlamps and all that. Unbeknownst to me, until I found out just in the last couple of years from that same gentleman who wrote to me, who was part of the museum exhibit, he said those implements that they're on display were actually retrieved from mining disasters where people lost their lives.
Wow.
So they're trigger objects. And then the Field Museum, very quickly, they have an exhibit in there for the Savo lions. You ever heard that story about those 2 male lions that were in killing all those people and eating them alive, where they're actually stuffed, they're taxidermied, but they're the actual bodies of those lions in that museum. I figure there's got to be something going on there. There's got to be some sort of
Could
psychic.
be.
And then in the basement, you have the Egyptian sarcophaguses, which are basically our modern man's attempt at modern grave robbery, which is the way I like to talk about it, because they're basically, they salvage these out of the graves, they put them on display. And there's a small little marker that's only about maybe, I don't know if I can see my fingers, but basically it's only about a foot tall. So it's like for maybe a small child that was mummified, and it's called Hara, Hawra. And they always see that thing falling over on its side. Sometimes you'll hear screaming coming from the mummy room, and there's nobody in there at night. So, I would love to get in there as well and do something in there. And I'm hoping to, there's been a recent change of management, I believe, in the Field Museum. I tried a couple of years ago over and over again, and nobody would ever return my calls. I mean, if you don't want me in there, just say you don't want me in there and I'll move on to someplace else. But it aggravates me when I can't get somebody to at least say, answer the phone, or,
Mm-hmm.
from PR or special events, at least to answer me and say, yeah, there's, where we don't want you there. We do, we do, because the way I approached them, it wasn't just me coming in to do investigation. I said, well, we can make money on this. I mean, we can do this around Halloween. I mean, it would be great publicity for you. You could make a little money. I could make a little money. We could bring the public in here. I could run the tours. You can collect the money and give me my share. You keep your share. So it was a money-making venture in the same way. So it wasn't just us coming in to ask to do an investigation. I was trying to give something back to the museum, so they could make money as well. And that's what happened with the Lincoln Park Zoo tours, and the Museum of Science and Industry, and of course the Field Museum. And there are a few others I'd like to get into as well that also have strange things going on too, because they're all trigger objects.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I was watching a documentary. I've been watching it on and off every time I can catch it. Mark has a theory and of where he's buried, and there are 2 other theories that I know of where he's buried. Okay, one of them's in Chicago. Okay, and I want to know where you think if you've got any idea, because they say some of these people are saying that because they talked to the guy's chauffeur and somebody else that was close to him and all of this, and they're all pretty sure why and where he is, and they all sound like pretty good theories, pretty good ideas. I couldn't, I mean, I'd have to go with one of the two baseball stadiums myself. Um, but anyway, I'm
You
talking
talking
about
about Jimmy
Jimmy
Hoffa?
Hoffa. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, Mark, didn't you say you think he's buried under Wrigley Field in the cement?
I think he's in one of the um, in one of the pillars.
Yeah, there's a couple of theories on that. One of the first theories that I had heard about is that he was buried underneath some newly laid sidewalks in the town of Joliet.
Mm.
That he was just they poured the concrete right over him, smoothed him down, and he's down there. That's the first thing that I had ever heard of. Okay, because he was never found.
On that phone.
He was obviously a mob hit. You know, he um, was not liked apparently by the mob, and they did away with him. The other one that came up a little bit later is that he was somehow his body was brought to Shea Stadium, and he was buried in Shea Stadium somewhere. Um, so I mean, I don't think we're ever going to know where he disappeared from. We do know that he went to meet somebody, a bunch of people. I believe it was in Des Plaines at a restaurant, and he was supposed to show up there. He did show up there.
Well,
And,
that's what they got. That's all they got is him leaving this place, and the whole thing is on a maroon colored,
Yeah.
possible Lincoln or uh, you
Monty,
know,
Well,
Thunderbird or something along those
right,
lines.
right, yeah.
sorry, I was a little late when I came in, but they brought food and I'm hungry. I haven't eaten most of the day, so
All right. Well, we should finish up anyways because I got.
you guys finish it.
But as I was
I'll
watching that
talk to you later.
documentary, yeah, you got to call me tomorrow
I will.
or
I'm.
later tonight when you're done eating.
We're going to look at houses tomorrow.
Yeah, well, call me later after you're done eating.
All right.
Yeah, well, take care, Mark. And like I said, you guys want to, do something this year. We'll put something together, and
All
we'll
right.
do some things together this year. Definitely.
Yeah. We'll get together on something. But
Okay. So,
I'm gonna go eat.
all right.
Yeah,
Take
and
care,
before I
Mark.
close this, I was going to finish this thought before I close this. I
Well,
was
finish it up.
watching this documentary, and yeah, they said different places, but the one thing they said that somebody shot it down saying no, you wouldn't want to move a body all the way from here all the way to Jersey or New York.
Right.
It's not feasible. Well, yeah, when the mafia owns the trucking industry, you just put them in a oil drum barrel, a big, you know, and then you stuff it on the back of the truck. Who's going to check the barrels, right? Well, they said somebody came forward and said that his father or something told him on his deathbed or something that he was buried in this dumping ground where to this day the FBI and CIA and God knows what other law enforcement officials are out there have been digging on and off and actually finding bodies out there. It was it's under some bridge in like New Jersey or New York area.
Yeah.
And he didn't say specifically where, but apparently they might have found it. They haven't excavated the site yet, but they were told that he was buried in the bottom drum, and there was 5 drums buried directly on top of him. Well, they went and they searched an area where they, with their investigation, they found that this could be the area. They went there with ground penetrating radar and found what looked like could be 6 drums buried one on top of shit.
Oh wow.
So now they're going to try to, get the permission to get those drums out and see what they can figure out.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there are so many unfortunately unsolved murders and missing persons here in the city of Chicago. I mean, you know, so many of these are never going to be discovered. You know,
Well,
even
that's because a lot
even
of them were mob
sisters.
hits.
I'm sorry.
A lot of them were mob hits over the years.
Yeah, yeah, they were. And
Chicago wasn't that the site of St. Valentine's Day Massacre
what was
somewhere
that?
in Chicago? St.
Yeah,
Valentine's Day Massacre.
yeah, that was at 2122 North Clark Street on the north side.
Yeah.
There used to be an old SMC Cartage Company garage there, which was torn down in the 1950s, or actually 1960s, I believe, during Jane Burns' time as mayor. And there's now a housing project for the elderly, but on the south end, there's a big kind of a like park-like area, and there's trees like the five spots of a playing card, and that center tree, if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the center, that
Yeah.
center tree is just about where the north wall of that building once stood, and that was where the men were lined up.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Dale, for coming on. We're past our hour. I got to eat.
Okay, so
I
always
am going to mention one thing because we don't have nothing booked yet. We don't have any plans yet. We don't know what's going on yet.
Sure.
Tell with all the way the prices are going out of whack. But we do know one thing, and we do know when we're going to be. October 14th to the 16th. It's 3 days, 14th, 15th, and the 16th. We're going to be in Milwaukee at this year's Milwaukee Paranormal Conference.
Yeah, is that with T Krullos?
T. Krulos and American Ghost Walks.
Yeah, I think I got an invitation to be there myself, so I'm probably going to be up there myself.
So
I will definitely see you guys up there then.
Yep. So we will be there.
All right, Joe, always a pleasure talking to you and Mark, and definitely touch base this year, and hopefully we can do something together again this year because I enjoy working with you guys.
Yeah. Who knows? We haven't got nothing planned yet.
All righty.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Thank
Okay,
you.
take care, Mark.